Congressman Schiff. He knowingly wasted millions of taxpayer dollars, fraudulent investigations, tried to outright deceive those that he was supposed to represent. Durham spoke about this very plainly, that the FBI, the CIA, they were even warned that this was going to happen in advance, and they still went out there and went along with the lie. That is your government directly being weaponized against President Trump and against the American people. Hey everybody, I hope that you're all doing well today. I'm here as always with an update on what has happened in Washington, D.C. this week. Got updates on Brightline, Lake Okeechobee. We're going to talk about some big stories coming out of Congress, including John Durham and his testimony. We're going to talk about a vote to censure Congressman Adam Schiff. So let's get into all this. First up, Brightline. Now, as you may have noticed, this week the United States Coast Guard, they began testing a new schedule for the St. Lucie River Railroad Bridge. Now, this is an attempt to deal with Brightline's planned expansion and dozens of high-speed trains that they want to run through the community on top of the freight trains that run through the community. I believe that the plan is equitable. It gives boaters and trains equal access, literally equal access. But the problem is the trains are unhappy because they aren't getting exactly what they want, and that schedule that they're not getting for themselves is creating a situation where they're threatening to block traffic throughout the Treasure Coast, because if they have to open up the bridge for boats to come through, then they have to stop trains across the roads. This is an issue that should have been dealt with years ago. Many of us in the community have been talking about it for years, but now it's just being brought up by Federal Railroad Administration and the train companies and the Coast Guard and everybody. We've warned them about this. I don't know why they didn't talk about this before, but that's what's taking place. Now, I've been in meetings, on calls about this issue all week. I've spoken to the Federal Railroad Administration, Coast Guard, CEO of Brightline, the other agencies that have been involved in this, and every time the message has been the same. Brightline does not get to hold our community hostage in either place. They don't get to hold the water hostage. They don't get to hold the road hostage. One of the most interesting conversations was, however, with the CEO of Brightline, and he said this, and this is his aim, this is his goal, that their company can schedule trains in such a way that the bridge could be open for boaters every hour, 50% or greater amount of time, without impacting traffic. That is to say, without having to stop trains across the roadways. That is his commitment. That's what he says they can do. If that's the truth, that's the only acceptable schedule for our community, that we get that minimum amount of access of 50% of the time, and we not have our roads held hostage. So I was glad to hear the Brightline CEO speak about that he believes he can get to that point. It's in consultation with Brightline, with Florida East Coast Rail, with Coast Guard, with Federal Railroad Administration, with Florida Department of Transportation. Everybody is a part of this conversation. Now, in the meantime, we can share our opinions about the Coast Guard's test schedule. Just like last year, there's going to be a public comment period that's open, and you can go to mast.house.gov/Brightline public comment to leave an opinion. Now, I'm sure there's going to be many more updates on this in the days and weeks to come, so stay tuned. I want to give you one other quick update on this. As much as the Coast Guard is saying that they're starting this test schedule, they're really not. The test schedule was supposed to be the bridge is open on 15 and 45 past the hour, and they were planning on doing that, but at the last second, the Coast Guard told the train companies, don't stop the trains. If you have a train coming, and even if it is 1:13 and you're supposed to be putting that bridge up in a couple minutes, don't stop the trains, because of, again, what we had been warning about for years, that those trains are going to stop across the roads. So it's not a true reflection of what that test schedule is going to look like. Also not a true reflection because they're not actually running all of the Brightline trains yet. So this is something we've been talking to them about, also saying you can't have a public comment, you can't have a test schedule on something that's not actually reflecting the real situation. So we'll get that straightened out as well. But there's an update on everything related to that. Switching gears, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, they appeared before the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee this week to talk about their budget request for next year. Now, I took this as an opportunity to ask how a law that I passed is being implemented, a law I passed last year. I wrote a bill that requires the Army Corps of Engineers to put a letter in the file, the personnel file of people that are civilians or military working for the Corps of Engineers that work around Lake Okeechobee on places like the Port Mayaca Lock and Dam, denoting their exposure to the high exposure of toxic, harmful algal blooms. And in many cases, these employees, they're forced to spend 8-10 hours a day directly on top of these blooms, breathing in the off-gassing fumes proven to be too toxic for human contact. The very least the Army Corps can do is make sure that those exposed won't have to fight to prove later in life that they were exposed to this when they develop some kind of consequences to their health. Now, I was glad to hear that the Army Corps is complying with the law, especially now as there is a massive bloom, a massive toxic bloom measuring somewhere over 80 parts per billion microcystin, covering a huge swath of Lake Okeechobee. Now, the fact that there is already this large bloom that is registering almost 10x too toxic for human exposure this early in the summer, it could be a very bad warning sign for our community, and we may be in for a rough summer, at least on Lake Okeechobee. Our fight every summer, keep that toxic water that's on Lake Okeechobee from coming into our beautiful Bahama blue coastal saltwater estuaries, totally separate water bodies. Don't let it come in. Kill off the seagrass, kill off the oyster spat, make our waterways disgusting. That water's on Lake Okeechobee. It's fresh water. It deserves to stay on Lake Okeechobee, not get sent out to our coastal estuary. That is our fight every single year with the Corps of Engineers, and that's what we're going to make sure happens. Now, finally, on the House floor this week, we considered a bill to formally censure a colleague, Congressman Adam Schiff. Now, as you may recall, Congressman Schiff was a leader in the Democrat efforts to convince the American people of the outright lie that President Donald Trump colluded with Russia in order to win the 2016 election. Outright lie. He went in and out of classified meetings week after week after week, walked out of those classified meetings and told the press that he was giving them this special information that was supposed to be classified, literally lying to the American people about this. This week's special counsel, John Durham, he testified before the Judiciary Committee, once again confirmed that this was a lie, that there was no collusion. That's why the House voted to censor Congressman Schiff. He knowingly wasted millions of taxpayer dollars, fraudulent investigations, tried to outright deceive those that he was supposed to represent. Durham spoke about this very plainly, that the FBI, the CIA, they were even warned that this was going to happen in advance, and they still went out there and went along with the lie. That is your government directly being weaponized against President Trump and against the American people. I don't think that Adam Schiff is going to call Donald Trump and apologize, but censuring him is proof that government must be accountable to the people and that actions do have consequences. Now, in that, as always, I hope that you all have a great week. I look forward to seeing you all around home, and I wish you all the best. Hey everyone, thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed the video, please click like and subscribe. I will be back on YouTube with more exclusive content, so stay tuned.